podcast.
Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and I'm delighted to be joined yet again by Ben Habib. How are you, Ben?
I'm very well indeed. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me on yet again.
It's always a pleasure. I'm surprised to have you on so early. It was your birthday yesterday. How did you celebrate?
Um, well, you won't believe it, but I spend most of the day on the telephone to various politicos doing this, that, and the other. It was like any normal day, but I went out for dinner with my family, which was lovely. Thank
Wonderful
you.
stuff. Well, I can believe it actually because you were on the show just minutes after it was announced that Zia Yusuf had resigned as Reform UK chairman, and he cited exhaustion and disagreement over the burka ban question, only to return 48 hours later. You've called Reform a circus in response. What does this episode reveal about the party's internal stability and decision-making process?
Well, it's like you and I discussed after we heard that he had first gone, that there were two things that I cited, I think, on Thursday when we chatted. The first was a lack of a political philosophical framework for the party, and particularly with Farage himself, but also that the party doesn't have proper foundations. It doesn't have a proper constitution and organization which has checks and balances and processes in place. And his resignation in the first place, I think, wouldn't have happened in the way that it did had the party been properly structured. He wouldn't have himself been wrong-footed by the question that Sarah Potchin posed at PMQs, and he wouldn't have tweeted what he then tweeted, which resulted, no doubt, in an almighty row in his resignation at the end of that day. And for the same reason, if the party had checks and balances, processes, and some degree of robustness about it, he wouldn't have been allowed back in 48 hours later. But particularly if he was exhausted, he needed to go on a 3 week or month sabbatical at the very least before he came back.
And it is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people, a tremendous response to our last chat when you came on the Andrew Eborn Show. A lot of people wanted to hear your views on the burqa ban.
Well, I'll tell you my views on the burqa ban. The burqa and its increasing prevalence in the United Kingdom is a function of unbridled immigration coupled with multiculturalism, which, for those who aren't familiar with the term, is basically the protection, promotion, and celebration of other cultures within the UK without any aim to integrate. It is a symptom, along lots of other symptoms, of a breakdown of cultural homogeneity in the United Kingdom. But the burqa is also two other things. It is an outright rejection of British culture. It is not consistent with the evolution of our very delicately balanced liberal democracy, which emancipated women, of which we should be very proud in this country. It is a complete slap in the face to that emancipation, the hundreds of years that it took to create that emancipation, as I say, therefore, to British culture. It is also, in my view, unmistakably an outward representation of the repression of women, against which I think just about everyone who's listening to the show, if not everyone, stands against. We all believe that men and women are equal. I think that's the sign of a civilized society. And so I am against the burqa. I'm against the niqab. The hijab is a different matter, but I have a real problem with the niqab and the burqa. And now, whether we should ban it or not is something I'm prepared to have a debate about. What I would rather do, Andrew, is get rid of the root causes that see the increasing prevalence of the burqa on our streets. I would get rid of the DEI regulatory framework and the legislation that underpins it. I would obviously reduce immigration dramatically, and I would have a positive vision for integration in the United Kingdom. I would take very many steps on a holistic basis to ensure that the burqa disappeared of its own volition, if you're with me. And in a sense, calling for a ban on the burqa is not really dealing with the root causes of the problem. It's like putting a sticking plaster on an ailment rather than dealing with with what's caused the ailment in the first place.
Right.
But I'm against the burqa. If I had to give an answer in 2 words, I'm against, or three or 4 words, I say I'm against the burqa.
And if you were in Parliament and had to put a vote for it, and people said, "We're voting for banning the burqa," would you support that?
I would have to support it. Yeah, I
Okay,
would rather deal with all the root
causes, yes.
causes
I know
and
you've made
nail
that very clear.
those. Yeah, yeah. But if it's a choice between that and nothing, then I ban the burqa. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your clarity. You've criticised Zia Yusuf's leadership style, alleging he displaced grassroots members and damaged reputations. How do you view his reinstatement, and do you believe it will exacerbate the issues you've raised about Reform's leadership?
Well, Zia Yusuf holds a very special place in Farage's heart. When he emerged from nowhere on the 30th of June, Farage said, "A star is born." And ever since then, no matter how much damage Zia Yusuf has done to very good people right across the country, Farage has stood by him. And Farage stood by him remarkably. I think it's the first time in Farage's career that when someone left a party in which he was involved, that he actually said he was sorry to see him go. And it's also a remarkable comeback because that doesn't really happen. It doesn't happen in politics mostly, but it certainly doesn't happen with Farage. And the wags on which I am, a member of, are alight with all sorts of supposition and theories as to what it is that is between Farage and Yusuf. Why do they have this special teacher-pet relationship? And the theories range, from one extreme to the other. But there's something peculiar about the relationship between Farage and Yusuf. Uh, his emergence cannot be explained easily. I know a lot of people point to the £200,000 donation he made, but that, frankly, is a rounding error in Farage's own bank account. So leave alone the political party. There's something afoot between Farage and Yusuf about which the public at large are not aware.
What do you suspect that might be?
Well, the wags are alight with, he's got some info on Farage, or Farage has to be nice to him for this, that, and the other reason. Um, I don't want to speculate in rumor, and
Well, no,
gossip, but
speculate. We don't want speculation. Let's stick to the
yeah,
facts and things like that. I
yeah.
mean, and speaking about speculation, I think Nigel Farage attributed Yusuf's brief resignation to exhaustion and racist abuse. Do you accept this explanation, or do you see deeper structural or ideological issues at play within reform?
Look, if he's exhausted and he can't put up with abuse, he certainly shouldn't have been let back into the party. If he's exhausted, go and have a break, recover, develop some political backbone, some fortitude, and be able to put up with the insults. We all get insults all the time. It's a necessary part of being in politics. But I mean, poor old Zaya, got tired and can't take the abuse. Well, then he shouldn't be there. Um, uh, there's something else going on, Andrew.
Yeah, so you don't accept the explanation, and you
No,
you don't.
it's
What do you,
garbage.
speculate with me a little bit? What do you think might be going on?
Well, Zia Yusuf no doubt threw his toys out of the pram when the burqa was attacked. Whether that's because of his own faith, because he's a Muslim and he is pro the burqa, that could be the case. It could be that he had lined up lots of candidates who were Muslim and had now had their noses put out of joint because the burqa had been challenged in the Commons. Or it could be that he thinks, perhaps understandably, that Sarah Potchin genuinely is dumb. That too could be a possibility. Um, and, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I think the whole thing is a show. I think it's a circus. It's
Yeah,
a circus. I was asked this morning on LBC, do you think this is going to be something that's going to happen on a recurring basis with reform? And my answer to that was absolutely. There will be so much media circus with reform because Farage is reform, reform is Farage, and Farage is inherently a maverick.
yeah.
So, you will see lots of this.
Yeah, so I look forward to the movie rights for that one. But the other thing, a question that pops up as well when people discuss it, and not, you don't have to answer this because we've touched on religion beforehand. It's a personal view. You said beforehand, basically that there was a Christian upbringing as well. Are you a Muslim?
No, I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Muslim. In fact, I'm involved in some litigation in Pakistan, and someone had drafted a document and put me down as a Muslim, and I deleted it because I'm not a Muslim. And I was baptized in 1994 just before I got married, because I got married in a church and I was baptized. My mother is Christian Church of England. My father is what I would call an extremely lapsed Muslim. Um, the way he drank, at least in his younger years, prohibited, I think, having a place in any Muslim heaven, frankly.
Right, okay. I know, very clear, as I say, very personal thing as well. So you classify yourself as a Christian?
I'm not being absolutely frank. I'm not strong on religion, but the basic tenets of Christianity are ones that I feel, culturally allied with. I think the principle of turning the other cheek is it's such an admirable principle. It's one that most of us fail to live up to, but it's something that we should all aspire to. That kindness that is at the heart of Christianity, and it's a rare thing for a religion at its heart to have that fundamental kindness, and I'm very attracted by that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm talking about turning the other cheek and all of the things and the poison that was thrown at you and Rupert Lowe. Last time we spoke, you didn't rule out returning to the party. Straight after the exclusive interview you did on the Andrew Eborn Show, Nigel Farage was doing one on GB News, to which he'd said he'd rather eat razor blades than welcome
Yeah,
Rupert Lowe.
I
How do
think.
you respond to that?
Well, he said that about Rupert Lowe, and I think when he was asked by me, he said, "Good God, no." Well, I think that as fun as it might be to watch Nigel Farage eat razor blades, there's no risk of him having to do so because Rupert Lowe will not be seeking a place back in the party. And whether the good God is going to allow me back in or not is also something which he doesn't need to worry about.
Yes. Very interesting. I'm talking about reform, and I've been looking at
Yeah.
Companies House, and I wonder if there's some stuff you can help me with because it all seems a little strange with company numbers and registration numbers and so on and so forth. And I had Catherine, as you know, Catherine Blakelock approached me to come on the show once other people were speaking out about Nigel. She set up the Brexit Party 23rd of November 2018, and I was looking at the numbers. But bear with me while we do this because I'm hoping you can provide some sort of clarity on this. But there's company number 11694. 875, and I'll pull up graphics and things like that so people can look for themselves. Companies House, and basically that was formed on, and that's referred to on the Reform website, which was formed back in 2018. The Constitution, however, doesn't show a company number; it just shows four X's and things like that. Can you comment on that?
I think they've loaded up documents in a hurry. They haven't thought it through. They've done some funny stuff on Companies House. They've changed the name of what was Reform 2025 Limited to Reform UK Limited. And
Yes.
they've changed the name of what was Reform UK Limited, the political party, to Reform 2025 Limited. I don't know why they're doing all this. It's all very peculiar. I can tell you that no matter what changes they've made to the company structure, it is not a democratically constituted political party. And the constitution does not benefit the so-called people that they cite as members. Um, those people are still, at best, subscribers. They're not genuine members of a political party. The party is controlled by Farage.
Okay, very good. And you say that when we talk about one company, I've also found there's another company, a company 162607666. And again, I'll pull that up. It was formed on the 18th of February 2025 with Farage and Yusuf basically behind that, and also somebody called Charlton Edwards, rather, a new appointment. And he's got
Yeah.
multiple roles: secretary, director, and treasurer. Do you have any views on that?
So, sorry, that was the company so the way it works is the company you've just described is the company that owns. So the company you've just described was Reform 2025 Limited, and it owns the company below it, which was called Reform UK Limited. And the company below it, Reform UK Limited, was and remains the political party. And they switched the names of these two companies for some reason, which is not clear to me. But the fundamental structure hasn't changed. It is still a company that owns another company. And the company which is at the bottom of this ownership ladder is the political party and is therefore controlled by the company above it, which is controlled in turn by Nigel Farage. And it used to be Zia Yusuf who was the director, but 2 days ago he resigned and this other chap just stepped in. Um, so it's really Farage and this other chap, Charles, I can't remember his surname, Charles, who control that company now.
Yes, well, Charlton Edwards and that sort of side
Charlton
as
Edwards,
well.
that's it, Charlton, yeah.
Yes. So the original company, as we say, was formed from the Brexit days, and it's Catherine who did that. You're
Yeah.
saying basically it now owns that other company, so it's owned by itself effectively. Is that
Yeah.
perhaps the owned by guarantee with members? I mean, because there's a bit of confusion about this, and I don't understand why people haven't clarified this confusion.
Yeah, so the can I call it TopCo and BottomCo, just
Yes.
so people understand? So the TopCo is a company limited by guarantee, and the BottomCo is a company limited by shares. It's the BottomCo that Catherine Blakelock set up in 2019. It's the BottomCo that became the Brexit Party. It's the BottomCo then changed from the Brexit Party to Reform UK, and it's the BottomCo that is the political party. The TopCo, which is the company limited by guarantee, is new, and that is the one controlled now by Charlton and Nigel Farage. That is the one where the members should sit. That is where the political party should be, and that is where the constitution of the political party should be. But it isn't. It's all in the BottomCo. And so it's a very peculiar structure, and it prohibits any form of genuine membership of the political party because the political party, the bottom co, is owned by the top co, not by the members. Does that make sense?
Well, it needs clarification, Ben, and it's
Yeah,
good to
yeah,
have you here. Other thing that needs clarification, I mean, it indicates it's owned by itself, as we say, and we talked about the guarantee by members. Why appoint Edwards if that is perhaps being run down as a company? Why do you think? What do you views on the
I don't
appointment
think
of
it
Edwards?
is. I don't
Right.
think it is being run down as a company. The bottom co is still the political party, and the top co owns the political party. So they're both important companies.
Okay, and the other question, I guess, is about the assets of members. Surely a member is associated with one limited company. You simply can't move them around.
You can't move them around. So they have to be introduced as members into one or the other of the companies. But one company is wholly owned by the other. So the bottom co only has one member, which is the company above it. Are you with me?
Yes.
And then the company above it actually has no members. It is a company without members, as far as I can see. So the people who think they're members are just subscribers. They have no say.
And it's something you and I have spoken about beforehand. We'd
Yeah.
sort of turn around and say, well, members think they get all these rights and privileges and so on and so forth. And effectively, you were saying it's a Nigel Farage fan club. Is that a fair summary?
Look, Farage himself says all the people, all his acolytes, the many sycophants with whom he surrounds himself, all say Farage is reform and reform is Farage. They tell me to get over it. Well, I accept it. Farage is reform and reform is Farage, 100%. That's it. That's all it is.
Okay. And do you think he will be replaced?
He's irreplaceable because Farage is reform and reform is Farage.
So,
The whole
so,
thing
so
will implode
okay.
if he gets hit by a bus.
Yeah, right. Okay. I don't know. And will you be driving that bus?
I will not be driving that bus. I believe in debate, free speech, and to defeat him on the debating podium, not in any other way.
I'm glad that's your answer. Absolutely. Was, of course, in jest for those who might think otherwise. And we spoke briefly about integrity. You were going to come back on the show once you're a bit further down the line with it. Where are you at the moment?
So we're at a stage where I really don't want to talk about it, and you should be very encouraged by the fact that I don't want to talk about it,
Okay, no,
if
that's
that's all
fine.
right.
You
Yeah,
said, oh, of course, absolutely. You said you're going to
yeah,
come back once you're ready to talk about it, once it's all in shape. So that's all good. May I ask just one
yeah.
question on that, though? If one, as and when you're ready, would Rupert Lowe come and join you?
That's another question which I wouldn't wish to answer. So you should be encouraged by that answer too.
I'm always encouraged, Ben. It's always good. Let me just ask this one thing then, and
Yeah.
leave you on a positive note. If this is the last interview you ever give, and people are looking back from decades now, what do you want them to understand about Ben Habib, who you are, not just a politician or businessman, but as a man? And what regret, if any, would you confess to them here and now?
Oh my God. Um,
And we know who
what do
that
they
God
what
is.
what what should they want to know about me?
So what's the
I,
truth
I
about Ben
think
Habib?
I mean I believe I say precisely what I think. I think I'm on a journey like every other human being. I'm learning, and I discover new things. But I believe that my political and philosophical framework is basically intact, hasn't changed really ever since I was a young man. It's become um, I've become more knowledgeable, and I've seen many more things and more difficulties in life and our legal framework, our constitution, etc. So I've been on that kind of journey, but I think I have a very clear understanding of who I am, what I believe, and I speak my mind I say things as I see it. I believe I'm therefore a man of integrity because have my principles and I stick by them. I do make mistakes. Do I? So I think the biggest mistake that I've made in politics is voting for the withdrawal agreement in the European Parliament. Um, I voted for it. I wrote at the time that I was voting for it because the British people had returned Boris Johnson to office. They had it therefore voted for the withdrawal agreement, which was Boris Johnson's agreement, and that he had promised to put all the ills in the withdrawal agreement right in the subsequent trade negotiations which he was having with the European Union. And I said that I'm voting for it for all those reasons. And if he doesn't put it right, which by the way he didn't, if he doesn't put it right, I'll stay and I'll fight him. I'll campaign for a better agreement. And and I have campaigned for a better agreement. I've stood my ground. But I still regret, I have a pang of regret that I didn't vote against it in the European Parliament. It would have made no difference to the result. The withdrawal agreement would have come into place. It had an overwhelming majority in the European Parliament. But I did something which I was not comfortable with. I knew the withdrawal agreement was a load of rubbish, and I should have just said, it's a load of rubbish. I don't care. Boris Johnson may have been elected on the back of this, but it's a load of rubbish. I'm voting against it.
Okay. Ben Habib, thank you so much for your very clear and very honest answers. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks a lot. Well, that's it for this edition of the Andrew Eborn Show. Explosive stuff from Ben Habib. Don't forget, you can subscribe. Press that subscribe button now. It is free, everybody's favourite four-letter word. And you can follow me at Andrew Eborn, at Octopus TV, on more platforms than Paddington. But for now, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.